How should Christians respond to racism and injustice? Welcome to the 1 Minute Apologist. I'm Bobby Conway, where we provide credible answers to curious questions. My guest is Adam Coleman. Good to have you on the program, bro.
What's going on, man? What's happening?
Yeah, not much, buddy. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my question. What would say you, man?
Yeah, so actually I think that the Bible gives us a number of different principles and commands that help us with a framework to how to engage racism and injustice, whether it be within the church or outside the church and society. So when it comes to amongst believers, obviously we're called to love one another. We're called to godly fellowship with one another and with Christ, right? However, given the nature of racism, being as unloving as it is, being based upon partiality, obviously that cuts against the kind of fellowship that we're supposed to enjoy with one another. And so in any way that we possibly can, Christians should eschew evil and get that out of our midst as much as we possibly can. Now, when it comes to in the world, it's a little bit different. I think we have a bit of a different aim. We understand that the world is broken, that man is depraved, and we're not trying to fix the world in some way that's apart from the gospel or just just for goodness sake. But the reality is, I think as we understand what it is that man is called to do while we're here, it gives us some insights in terms of how the believer should interact with sin as it's in the world, in the brokenness thereof. So mankind, given that we're made in the image of God, an aspect of that is that we've been assigned with this project of stewarding the earth in a way that reflects God's nature and his will for mankind, right? Now, racism is a form of sin that gets in the way of that. It gets in the way of mankind functioning in such a way that we've been called to function. So as a believer, anytime we see evil in the world, again, we can eschew evil and stand against it on that basis in terms of what we've been purposed to do. And then aside from that, kind of circling back to how we deal with one another as believers, we've been called to bear one another's burdens and love one another as we would love ourselves. And so if our brother in Christ or sister in Christ is enduring some sort of hardship or oppression in the world, then we can come alongside and stand against those kind of things for the sake of loving our brother and so forth, and bearing one another's burdens in that way. And finally, the reality is we're supposed to do all things in a way that glorifies Christ. We should let our light so shine before men so that they can see our good works and glorify our Father who's in heaven. And so when we're living out the biblical ethic of love and justice and all these rich truths that the Bible gives us, then we're really a calling card at that point for God and his kingdom. And that's how we ought to be.